Prime Minister's future is hanging by a thread this morning after an apology in the Commons and the government's worst polling against Labour in almost a decade.
Boris Johnson was asked why he shouldn't resign several times during Prime Minister's questions yesterday. Let's have a look.
He's finally been forced to admit what everyone knew, that when the whole country was locked down, he was hosting boozy parties in Downing Street. Yes. Is he now going to do the decent thing and resign?
I regret very much that we did not do things differently that evening, Mr. Speaker, as I've said, and I take responsibility and I apologise, Mr. Speaker.
Well, joining us now from the Labour Party is the Shadow Housing Secretary Lisa Nandy. Good morning to you, Lisa. Thank you very much for joining us. I wonder, firstly, what your reaction was to Boris Johnson and the apology he made in Parliament yesterday.
I listened very carefully to what the Prime Minister had to say yesterday. I think he is sorry, but he's sorry that he got caught. And the fact that he's had ample opportunity to level with the public, to come clean about the fact that the rules have been broken and refused to do so, telling us over and over again that no rules have been broken, that he was furious with other aides and members of his close circle who had broken the rules and yet didn't come clean and tell us that he himself had been at a party in breach of the rules. It tells you everything you need to know about the level of integrity that this Prime Minister had, and that's why we agree with the few Tory MPs, leading Tories, who've had the courage to say that he must go. He's just not fit to hold office.
Lisa, he might, though, be very useful for you as a part of a party that wants to get back into power if he stayed, though, isn't it? Because I know in your heart you're thinking about the country, but never has Labour for 10 years been doing so well in the polls against the Conservatives.
Look, I'd love to see a Labour government, but I care about this country. I live in it, and I don't want us to be in a situation which is unprecedented, I think, in my lifetime, where we've got a Prime Minister who has lied to the country. He's not been honest about breaking the rules that he himself made and that he asked other people to abide by, not just abide by because it was convenient, but because he himself said on the day that this party took place, he confirmed to the House of Commons that 181 NHS staff had died from COVID. My inbox is full this morning, I'm sure yours are as well, of stories of people who lost loved ones who weren't able to say goodbye, absolutely heartbreaking stories about what was happening to them on the day that this party took place. And they are appalled, horrified and re-traumatised by the fact that we've got a Prime Minister who is still refusing to come clean about what other parties he attended, what parties the members of his cabinet attended, and how it could have been that you could have had senior ministers and the Prime Minister standing up and telling us about the impact that this was having on the country, that we all must continue to do what they were telling us to do, and yet they weren't doing it themselves. He's taking the public for fools and he's got to go. Lisa,
lots of people getting in touch this morning. As you've just said, your inbox is full, but a few of them are in support of him as well. I just want to put the point that Steve makes. A drinks party to thank everybody for going above and beyond during the pandemic, as short as it was. I can see how it came about. He shouldn't have lied, but he's still doing a good job under the circumstances. The economy, in comparison, is great. Obviously, Boris Johnson will point to the vaccine rollout and where we are on a global scale in terms of our vaccination process. Long term, he should remain. So there are still people that are willing to give him a chance. He shouldn't have lied. He has now apologised. Let's just move on and let them carry on doing what they've been doing well to this point.
I think the difficulty with that argument is the Prime Minister still not coming clean about his actions over the course of that lockdown. And members of the Cabinet aren't either. This morning, our Deputy Leader, Angela Rayner, has written to the government to ask them to clarify details about parties that other Cabinet ministers may have attended but won't answer questions about. We're in a farcical situation now where the Prime Minister, having refused to tell us about this party and telling us that no rules have been broken when in fact that turns out that's not the case, is now telling us that he needs an inquiry by one of his own civil servants in order to level with and be honest with the public. I've had one email in the last 24 hours supporting the Prime Minister. I've had hundreds from people who in the most heartbreaking of circumstances, are telling me that they now deeply regret the fact that they didn't go and say goodbye to loved ones because they were trying to do the right thing.
Yeah.
But when they look at what the Prime Minister's done, they just feel, was that the right thing to do? And they're questioning themselves. I'm on their side, and I'm on the side of everybody in this country who believes that we need a Prime Minister who is honest, who has integrity and has a moral compass. And that is not what we've got in this country at the moment.
OK, well, let me put some of the points that I think people surrounding Boris Johnson might be making. Politicians make mistakes. Jeremy Corbyn was caught out, wasn't he? Having a dinner party where more people than were supposed to. He slightly fudged his explanation on it, and eventually it came out, and then he said sorry. Politicians do things wrong because they're human. He's always been quite reticent, Boris Johnson, about imposing these rules. One of the confusion of the mixed messaging is that the scientists were saying one thing was necessary, other members of the government, Matt Hancock at the time, saying one thing was necessary, and he would like, well, I think people have common sense, you know. So in his personality, he wasn't for the strictness of rules. Is there a conflict between what he did in terms of personally that he's a liar, or was he just not really signed up to it properly? Is he literally lying and trying to get away with having a fun old time where the rest of the country suffered? Or is he just not signed up to the way it was handled, and does it matter?
Well, you're asking me if he's not up to the job or whether he's not fit for the job, and either one of those scenarios does not bode well for the rest of us in this country. I think Boris Johnson must surely have known that sending out an email inviting 100 people to come to a garden party and bring their own booze was in breach of the rules.
Email, though, I don't believe, was he? I don't think he got the email, did he? I think that's one of the points that was clarified.
I'm not sure what he thought he was attending then when he walked into his garden and found gatherings of a large number of staff drinking alcohol and went to thank them. He clearly knew that he was at a party because he was thanking people who attended. I mean, I just don't think it's credible.
Wasn't it that Keir Starmer... It was a shame yesterday, Lisa, that Keir Starmer didn't ask him if he authorised the email that was sent by Martin Reynolds. That would have been quite a good use. I know Keir Starmer was making an important point, but that would have been quite a good use of one of his questions. Did you authorise the sending of that email?
Well, we get 6 questions, and we have to use them to try and get answers from the Prime Minister. It's always difficult to get answers from the Prime Minister at Prime Minister's question, but I have to say this Prime Minister is particularly difficult. He never answers the question. And, you know, I'm not, you know, whether he wants to answer Labour's questions or not is up to him. But the fact that he won't come clean with the public, I think that's really serious.
We've had a lot of people...
It shouldn't take inquiries. It shouldn't take him being cornered for him to tell us this information. He should come clean with the public right now.
There are questions being asked of the Met Police and the investigation into this as well. Chris has made an interesting point this morning. He said, isn't there normally police at number 10 Downing Street to protect the place? Surely they would have seen what was going on. Questions of why they didn't say there's a gathering in the back garden. I'm not sure that's strictly allowed.
I think there is now some possibility that there may be some action taken. I don't know if the police would have known that it was taking place because they stand outside the front gates. I don't know whether they would have known this or not. And obviously, it's important that we understand that because the law has to apply equally to all of us. Otherwise, society can't function. So I think it's important. These are important questions. I think it's important that the public get answers. But there's one person who could tell us the answers right now. He could come on your show this morning and he could clear all of this up. And that's the Prime Minister. And the fact that he's still not doing that, the fact that he's still hiding from and ducking these questions shows that he's taking the public for fools, and it just won't do.
Well, we'd love him to come on, wouldn't we? Unfortunately, Brandon Lewis is doing the rounds on a number of other TV shows this morning, but he won't come on Good Morning Britain for some reason. We did invite him.
Yeah, he's on Sky News, BBC Breakfast, Radio 4, LBC, and done an interview with ITV News. And we just have an empty chair in Westminster. And Mr. Lewis, it felt like it was left to me this morning to put the case for the government, which I'm not sure is a position you're comfortable in, let alone me. And you're right, you know, Boris Johnson could speak out, but also so could the people around him to clarify it, couldn't they? So, Lisa, thanks very much indeed.